At the start of the film, we meet JR, a 19-year-old young man who is clearly out of his depth. He's a nobody in a harsh, unforgiving world, sentenced to 6 months in prison for a minor offense and processed through the standard intake routine. He's placed in a cell with a single inmate, a quiet, seemingly helpless man who becomes the repeated victim of brutal sexual assaults by a vicious gang of prisoners led by a powerful inmate named Dave. As JR adjusts to the rigid, punishing rhythm of prison life, he encounters Brendan Lynch, a feared criminal notorious for violent armed robberies. Brendan is both intelligent and physically imposing, and when JR notices an unexpected checkmate during one of Brendan's long-distance chess games, it catches his attention. Doubtful but curious, Brendan challenges JR to prove it. Though impressed, Brendan brushes it off and walks away, leaving JR to return to his cell. Back in the cell, JR finds his cellmate desperately carving a toothbrush into a crude weapon, preparing himself for Dave's inevitable return. When Dave comes the following day with violent intent, JR steps in without hesitation. A fight breaks out, and JR is punished with time and solitary confinement for interfering. When JR is released back into the general population, Brendan confronts him, warning him against getting involved in other people's problems. Despite JR's earlier intervention, his cellmate is assaulted again, pushing him to attempt suicide using the makeshift weapon. JR discovers him choking on his own blood and frantically calls for help. Days later, Dave and his gang move to attack JR, but Brendan and his crew, Sterling and Merv, step in, ending Dave's control once and for all. In the aftermath, a deal is made. Brendan will protect JR for the rest of his sentence, and in return, JR will work for Brendan once he's released. After months pass, JR's prison term finally ends. Freedom is within reach. He goes to meet Sam, a powerful crime boss, and Brendan's chess opponent from outside prison. Sam welcomes JR into his world alongside his nephew, Josh, providing him with an apartment and a briefcase containing Brendan's personal belongings. Inside, JR finds forged passports, new clothes, and a handgun, clear signs of the life he's being pulled into under Brendan's guidance. That night, a striking young woman named Tasha visits JR's apartment. She brings him cash and a cell phone, explaining it will be his lifeline for receiving instructions. She leaves just as daylight begins to break. JR's next stop is the trailer of a man known as Private Wilson. Under Sam's supervision, JR acquires a range of illegal assault weapons and learns how to use them.
Covering fire!
He then heads to a helicopter tour business and forces the stunned pilot to fly him to the prison holding Brendan. Inside the prison, Brendan and his crew seize a guard and wait for their airborne escape. When the helicopter touches down, they rush aboard, finally leaving the prison behind. After flying a long distance, they land, switch to a getaway car, and release the pilot unharmed. They stop briefly for food, sending Merv inside while the others wait. A radio broadcast reveals a shocking truth. Merv has a past conviction for raping a schoolgirl in Perth, something he hid from the group. Brendan is enraged. He savagely beats Merv and banishes him from the crew. Brendan, Sterling, and JR return to the apartment. After evaluating the space, Brendan points out how exposed it would be in an attack, and they decide to move to a safer location. They head to Sam's luxurious home, where Sam assigns them a high-risk job, stealing gold in Kalgoorlie, a score worth millions. While at Sam's estate, JR spots Tasha again and follows her to the pool area. Josh taunts JR and pushes him into the water, unaware that JR can't swim. JR struggles until Tasha pulls him out. Embarrassed and shaken, JR leaves alone, but Tasha follows him in her Porsche and invites him to dinner at a Chinese restaurant. Over dinner, JR asks Tasha why she stays with Sam when she clearly has the money and the car to disappear if she wanted to. Tasha responds with a chilling warning, telling him what happened to the last woman who tried to escape. She was tracked down and murdered. When morning comes, Brendan confronts JR, furious about what happened the night before between him and Tasha. He makes it clear that JR cannot afford distractions, especially not a woman, when there's serious work ahead. Shortly after, they're moved to a new safe house arranged by Sam, one that finally provides real security. From there, Brendan and JR head to Kalgoorlie to scout the area and prepare for the robbery. Brendan lays out the plan in detail, making it clear that JR will be in charge of controlling the hostages. He explains exactly how JR is expected to respond if anyone tries to trigger an alarm. That night, they attend a local rally racing event. where Brendan reconnects with Victor Chris, an old associate who is soon brought into the plan. Back at Sam's estate, tensions flare as the crew argues over the final details of the heist. A fight breaks out between JR and Josh, but Brendan quickly steps in, ordering JR to walk away and cool off. JR heads to the bar, where he spots Tasha being harassed by a group of aggressive men in a private section. Seeing her uncomfortable, JR steps in, flashing his gun and forcing the men to leave. Instead of relief, Tasha reacts with anger, terrified of what Sam might do if he discovers what happened. To smooth things over, they agree to meet later by a nearby lake, close to where JR is currently staying. Under the starlit sky, JR opens up about his childhood and the hardships he endured growing up. Their connection deepens, leading to an intimate moment together in the lake. As dawn approaches, Tasha gives JR a charm necklace for luck. In return, JR makes her a promise. He tells her to pack her things, saying that once the job is done, they'll take their cut and start a new life together. That night, the crew prepares for the mission, tension and anticipation hanging thick in the air. They set off toward Kalgoorlie. During the long drive, Sterling opens up to JR about his past and his history with Brendan, sharing stories meant to toughen JR and strengthen his resolve. When they reach their target, the operation begins smoothly. Their fake identities get them inside without suspicion. JR slips into the ventilation shaft above the gold processing room, where he takes position and waits through the night until morning arrives. Back at Sam's greenhouse, Tasha is cornered by Sam's relentless questioning. She tries to dodge his suspicions, but eventually cracks, reluctantly admitting the truth about her relationship with JR. As the workday begins at the gold processing facility, employees start arriving one by one. Catching them off guard, JR quickly takes control, stopping them from activating the panic alarm. This allows the rest of the crew to enter unseen. Brendan forces two workers to continue their jobs, making them convert the flowing molten gold into solid bars. In the middle of the operation, everything spirals when Josh suddenly fires his gun, shooting one of the workers in the leg. Josh claims the man was trying to run, but the reckless act sends Brendan into a fury. He immediately punches Josh hard in the face. The chaos doesn't go unnoticed for long. Police sirens erupt outside, signaling that law enforcement has arrived. Reacting fast, Brendan and the crew grab 6 gold bars and move to escape, using the hostages as human shields to keep the police from firing. They race to their getaway vehicle, pile in, and take off. The police give chase, refusing to let them disappear. The stolen car weaves dangerously through traffic, bullets flying as sirens scream behind them, the pursuit turning the road into a violent, high-speed battleground. Just as they near the outskirts of Kalgoorlie, disaster strikes. Sterling is hit by a bullet that tears through his abdomen, blood pooling rapidly as the wound proves catastrophic. Despite his condition, the chase continues at full throttle. It finally ends when Chris skillfully outmaneuvers their pursuers, forcing a crash that shakes the police and allows them to escape. The relief is short-lived. Sterling begins to fade, his strength slipping away. With his final breath, he makes an emotional request that his share of the stolen gold be given to his young daughter. Later, the crew conceal their damaged vehicle inside a transport truck and make their way back to Sam. Sam orders them to destroy the car and erase all evidence while he begins the process of dividing the gold. Following his directions, Brendan and JR drive the car, with Lowe's body still inside, and push it off a cliff, ensuring it will never be found. Meanwhile, as Tasha packs her belongings, she's confronted by Ken, one of Sam's enforcers. When he notices her packed bags, a violent struggle breaks out. After an intense fight, Tasha manages to knock him unconscious. Sensing the danger closing in, JR and Brendan slip away quietly. They stop at a grave where Brendan has hidden cash. With this money secured, they prepare for their next move, traveling to Melbourne, where Sam plans to turn the stolen gold into usable cash. JR reunites with Tasha aboard a train headed for Melbourne, their passion reignited. They settle into a temporary place to stay, and while watching the news, they realize they are being publicly identified as suspects in the Kalgoorlie robbery. Notably, Sam's name is nowhere in the coverage, hinting that he has carefully maneuvered events to protect himself.
Post this while you're out.
What is it?
Dead man's cut. It's for Sterlo's wife.
Post it yourself.
You do as you're told.
What are you gonna do? Hey, run off with that stupid cow?
Tasha leaves to honor Sterling's final wish, delivering his share of the money to his family. While she's gone, Brendan sees an opportunity to speak privately with JR. He warns JR that Tasha, because of her emotional attachments, could become an obstacle to their future plans. To clear the path ahead, Brendan offers JR a stack of cash, subtly suggesting it may be time to distance himself from her. Tasha witnesses the exchange and is deeply hurt. Overwhelmed with emotion, she storms out. JR follows, trying to explain himself, but she warns him that once everything is finished, Brendan may turn on him just as easily as he suggested abandoning her. Their heated exchange is suddenly interrupted when a man named Wayne bursts into the room, gun raised and aimed at Brendan. Wayne announces that Sam has put a bounty on Brendan's head. Despite the threat, Brendan remains calm. Using his sharp instincts, he flips the situation, convincing Wayne that Sam has betrayed him as well. Brendan tempts him with the promise of a far greater payout if he switches sides. The lure of more money proves too strong. Wayne reconsiders his allegiance and ultimately agrees to Brendan's offer. As dawn begins to break, JR and Brendan head toward the location where Sam is set to divide the gold. They arrive just in time to spot Josh and Ken pulling up in a vehicle, handing a key over to an unknown man. The exchange is suddenly disrupted when Wayne barrels into the scene in a pickup truck, crashing through and igniting a violent shootout. In the chaos, Brendan kills Ken and captures Josh, taking him hostage. Josh refuses to talk, stubbornly holding his silence. Looking for another way to break him, they resort to an extreme tactic, locking him inside a freezer. The brutal cold quickly wears him down, and after only a few minutes, Josh caves, revealing where the gold is hidden. Without delay, Brendan and JR retrieve the gold neatly packed inside a suitcase. With the prize secured, their focus shifts to settling things with Sam once and for all. Fueled by anger and betrayal, they head straight to Sam's place. When they arrive, Brendan wastes no time, killing Sam swiftly and without hesitation. Later, Brendan and JR check into a motel for the night. Brendan hides the suitcase of gold beneath the bed, while JR secretly mails the motel room keys to Tasha. When Brendan asks where he went, JR casually brushes it off, claiming he stepped out to buy a candy bar. Soon after, they go to purchase a boat, planning to leave the country and escape everything behind them. As morning comes, the two set out on the water. Brendan, however, intends to betray JR, planning to push him overboard and leave him with only a small portion of the gold. Anticipating this move, JR reveals the truth. He's already hidden the gold, double-crossing Brendan first. Brendan pulls a gun on him, but before he can act, Tasha calls out from the shore.
Here, half of the gold. Do what he says.
Who are you? Skin and chocolate bar.
Things aren't as you imagine.
Okay, number 43.
You were right. Never trust a woman. Checkmate.
Holding the gold hostage and demanding that Brendan comply with JR's terms. Furious, Brendan drags JR into the water. Moments later, Brendan resurfaces alone, only to pull JR back up, demanding to know how he could trust Tasha with something so valuable. JR calmly admits he didn't overthink it, explaining that his trust comes from the deep love he shares with her. JR eventually makes it back to shore and reunites with Tasha. Days later, Brendan is arrested and sent back to prison. Months pass, and Brendan receives a letter from JR revealing the location of his share of the gold. Included with the letter is a photograph of a pregnant Tasha. The film ends with Brendan standing at his prison window, looking out with a quiet smile, suggesting hope for a better future, even from behind bars. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to support the channel. Thank you for watching.